Good evening. My name is Zoe.
Hi, yes, and my name is Solomon.
And we are this year's Native American Heritage Month co-undergraduate and student coordinators. Before we get started with today's event, we would like to acknowledge the Anishinaabe community and the Three Fires Nation land on which we stand. As the Anishinaabe Kwe and a citizen of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe, I find it extremely important to acknowledge Michigan's foundation, our Indigenous peoples. This land shows us how we should take care of it and how it should take care of us.
Thank you to our elders and all our relations for making these events possible. We also appreciate our co-sponsors within the Department of American Cultural, and Pacific Islander American Studies at the University of Michigan. At this time, we have the distinct honor of introducing Samara Jackson Toby, who is not only last year's Native American Heritage Month undergraduate coordinator, but is also just an amazing Indigenous leader here at the University of Michigan. Last year, Zoe and I were both first year students, and Samara allowed us to feel really instantly welcomed and valued as a part of this Indigenous community on campus. And working with her this year, especially on the United Statement and everything that comes with it, is just a great honor.
We can't thank Samara enough for all the work she does to support the Indigenous and marginalized communities at and beyond the university, but also on personal levels with her just checking in on us and us checking in on her has been very helpful both mentally and spiritually throughout our journey at the university, as well as the path that she's made for students that come along after her and to follow and build upon.
So please join us in welcoming Samara Jackson Toby, who will introduce and facilitate the conversation with our speaker for today.
Katabaton Tamawish, Natasui Samara, Ancient Moonbeam Julia Jackson Toby. I'm very grateful to have the honor of introducing Dr. Fuifuilupe Niumei, also my auntie Fuifui. I do work like this, like loving Solomon and Zoe and all NASA students and Pacifica students here and to come because of the work that Auntie Fui does, Dr. Fuifuilupe does. I'm just a link to the greater mana that is Dr. Fui's Manawahine. So I'm gonna read into it a little bit. Dr. Fuifuilupe Niumetolu is a Tongan Pacific Islander scholar, poet, and community organizer. Auntie Fui received her doctorate from the Comparative Ethnic Studies Department at the University of California, Berkeley in 2019 and is currently a lecturer in the Department of Gender and Women's Studies at the University of California, Berkeley. She is working on 2 book manuscripts, The Mana of the Tongan Everyday, Tongan Grief and Mourning, Patriarchal Violence, and Remembering Va, and a collection of creative nonfiction titled Looking for Hinenui Tepo, Searching for Our Mother. Her research and storytelling examines the productions of violence against women in Tongan families and communities that are legacies of European and US colonialisms. I would like to thank Auntie Fui greatly for allowing all she's endured to become a beautiful story that we can now heal and learn from and repatriate our generations to come to be in alignment with our ancestral knowings. I'm extremely grateful for you. I could never thank you enough for all that you do. And I'm also very grateful for Dr. Najida, who allowed me to connect with you, because Dr. Najida knows I was searching for you. So welcoming you. Go ahead.
Wow. Wow, young scholars. I'm really humbled. I'm really humbled to be here. You know, that's one of our Tongan and our Pacific, and as Indigenous people, that's one of our protocols because, you know, I know that you're young scholars. So part of this is just, it's our talanoa, it's our conversation. It's one where I share with you stories, and we'll get a little bit into that. You know, it's so funny for someone who loves to tell stories. I'm a little lost for words right now. Really, because I mean it when I say that I'm so humbled. You know, young scholars, it took me 13 years to do my dissertation, to finish it. And I say that because I know that academia is a really tough place for so many of you right now. And I say that it took me 13 years to finish the dissertation. This does not include, this was just the PhD. This doesn't include my undergraduate studies, where I was in my 5th year, my undergraduate studies, and I left the university that I was at because of politics, and finished my undergraduate at the University of Utah, and then did an MA. I did an MA at Purdue University in history so that I could make up for my undergraduate grades not being the best, because there was this dream that I had that I would go to the University of California, Berkeley. And so in telling this story, first and foremost, it is a story about Fonua. For us from Tonga and also from the Pacific, I was at the Kahaka Symposium with Maori brothers and sisters this time last year. And they also have the word Fonua, and also Moana is the same word that we all share from Moana Nui, or the Pacific. Our Maori brothers and sisters reminded me, they said, remember our sister Fuifuilupe, Fonua for you as a Tongan is just like it is for us as Maori. What it is our Mother Earth. So young scholars, for us is how important our Fonua is, or how inextricably linked how inextricably linked our Fonua is to who we are as Pacific people, as people from Moana Nui, as Indigenous people, is that when we're born, when we come out of our mother's womb, what our mother and elders do in our families, they take our umbilical cord and they bury it in the land. They bury it in a land or part of the land that's important to your family, to your kainga, to the peoples that you come from. And what we as Tongans know our protocol and belief system is, like it is for all of us as Indigenous people, is that when your umbilical cord, your Fonua is buried into the Fonua, those are the original instructions of how your life is to be carried. That becomes a roadmap for how your life is carried out. That means that you do the difficult work, young scholars. You do the difficult work to protect that Fonua. You do the difficult work to work against settler colonialism's desires to desecrate the sacred. And you use your life. Your life then becomes your voice, your desires. That's what you do. Your responsibility is you become the ancestor. You protect that Fonua for what our Native brothers and sisters say, for the next 7 generations. So it is with Fonua again. It is because of the importance of Fonua. For those of us from Moana Nui, the Pacific Ocean is also our mother. As our great Pacific Islands studies father of Pacific studies, our late beloved Epel Hia'ofa, what he talked about is that although the West might see the Pacific as small, inconsequential little islands, although we're invisible in the West, Tonga, for example, my original home, the land of my ancestors, on the Western cartography of maps is nothing but a little dot. Samoa, little dots. Aotearoa, a little bigger, but still inconsequential in the West. Our brothers and sisters in the Marshall Islands, not only did the US go and do their nuclear testing and the rest of the world there because they were inconsequential. But what our great father of Pacific Island Studies reminds us, young scholars, is that we have to resist the colonial vision of looking at ourselves. What he says is, instead of looking at the islands and judging ourselves only by islands because we're small, he says, look at where our mana comes from. He says, look at where our ancestral mana comes from, our Moana. We as Pacific people, our ocean makes up more than 40% of this earth. This is where we get our mana. Instead of looking at ourselves as these disparate, inconsequential islands as it is set up according to the West, let us look at ourselves and the mana that we have our ancestral mana. This is where our power comes from, always has come from. Our ecological, it always has come from our Mother Earth and our mother, our great Moana. So for our young scholars, Zoe and Solomon, I really want to say whakatulo watu. Whakatulo watu, pemo e whakawhetai. Ki he kainga Anishinaabe, the Three Fires nations. I want to thank them because young scholars, I also recognize and I honor what I just said is whakatulo watu, again, is with great humility. With great humility. When we meet other Indigenous people, we usually exchange gifts, and it's always done through the matrilineal side. The gifts that we exchange is galoa. It's made, it's like ngatu, it's mats, it's bark cloth. It's made by the hands of Tongan women, and it's exchanged by the hands of Tongan women. It would be exchanged with the women in your families. And at the same time, we would have a whole oratory. We would send out elders to recite genealogies. And this is so important to know, young scholars. The oral traditions, because what we've learned in academia is that this is not important. What academia always wants are written work, right? A published work. For us as Indigenous people, I'm thinking if we were to meet Zoe, Solomon, Samara, and Andrea, we would have gifts, we would have food, we would bring octopus, we would bring the best. We would bring the best that we have. Because that's also a prodigal of us from the Pacific. One of the prodigals that we have that we share with you, young warriors, is that how we judge our wealth is not by how much we can accumulate. It's not about how much as we as individuals can get. How we judge our wealth, young warriors, is always by how much we can share. It's how we can take care of our relationships, how we can tauhiva. Again, the importance, the sacred, recognizing the sacred in you is what we do by the exchanges of gifts. So young scholars, with that also being said, I also want to acknowledge, I want to thank every single one of you that are here. All of you for making the time. I recognize that this is a really difficult time of the semester. It's also a really difficult time in our world, right? Young scholars, it's a difficult time in our world. And I want to say thank you so much for making the time to be here. And when I was talking to the young scholars, Solomon and Zoe and Samara and Andrea, when I acknowledged their ancestors, young scholars, it's not a coincidence that we're here meeting together in this circle for Talanoa. So I also want to acknowledge and humbly acknowledge the ancestors too that bring you here. Because as Pacific people and as Indigenous people, we know that when you come as an individual, you're not an individual. We know, like I've seen you right here, Krishna. Krishna, I know that you had people whose dreams, whose great love brought you here, where you are here today. Right, it's what I always tell the students. At this time of great crisis, I want you to know that you're not alone. I teach in the Department of Gender and Women's Studies at the University of California, Berkeley. At every time we meet with the students, I always remind them, the first thing we do when we meet is I say, hey, everybody, I want us to know that we're on unceded Ohlone territory. The University of California, Berkeley is built on stolen land. That's important to acknowledge. And that also has to change. And by that kind of knowledge, centering that kind of knowledge, it changes the way that we walk on our Mother Earth. Also with each student that I acknowledge, I also say, and many of them, everyone, I really want to say this out of so much respect. In the last couple of weeks, I've had I know of 4 young people who have attempted to take their lives. So really for me, it is really of a lot of intention. When I say this, young people, that you are also part of the circle. that you have ancestors that worked really hard, who dreamt, whose seeds they sowed so that you could be here today. And because of that knowledge as well, what we also know is that we also are going to be ancestors for the next 7 generations. So that means that the work that you do today, young scholars, is really important. So just to begin off with, and this is usually, I always have a song. I just wanted to offer, thank God for all of you, I'm not actually offering the song, but I have my niece here, she's Pomo, California Indian, Desiree Harp. She's gonna be offering a woman warrior song. And this song she actually offered at a woman warrior program. I also am a host of the Segurite Seeding Hope speaker series. In this particular speaker series, I actually interviewed, I had the great honor of interviewing renowned California Indian Lishana Lonelita Karina Gold, and co-founder of the Segurite Land Trust, also the well-respected Native Hawaiian Kanaka Maoli leader of Mauna Kea, Kumupua Case, and also the Winnemem Wintu from here in California, the Shasta Mountain, the people of from the Shasta, the Winnemem Wintu, Chief Colleen Sisk. So this is right before our conversation, and it's called Warrior Woman. And everybody, I also just want to talk about the importance of relationships, right? And how people take care of each other. This song, for example, was revived, right? It's also a song that, according to how the genealogy of the song is, that the song went underground for a while. Right, went underground for a while, and it came back up. It was revived by our sisters, actually at Standing Rock. The song also was revived and sang by our Kanaka Maoli sisters up in Mauna Kea. And also it was revived. And I have to tell you, whatever small contribution that I had, I also participated in singing this song. Here in the Ohlone sacred places like this, the West Berkeley Shaman, and also the Run for Salmon with the Winnemem Wintu. Okay, so I'll just give you this beautiful rendition by Desi. You're gonna hear, first and foremost, Najoni is another young leader. She's gonna introduce the song, and also Desi. Okay, yep, I know this is gonna work. Here we go.
Our present day Oakland, from Ramai, West Oakland, in the Ohlone territory of Lishan. And I'm very passionate about STEM education. I'm very passionate about languages as well. So I want to do everything in my power to be able to bring that knowledge, ancestral and modern knowledge, back to the community. So today I have the honor of introducing Desiree Harp. She is a member of the Mishawawappo tribe of the Central Californian coastal area, and she's also a descendant of the Dene Nation in the Southwest. She's the founder of Mishawa Onastatis, a language revitalization program, and she's also a well-known organizer with the Run for Salmon program. Thank you for offering this song, Desiree.
Just want to call on all our relations, and I want to honor all of our ancestors, and just want to sing this song right now to honor all of these elders that are on the panel right now. It's really beautiful that we have women on this panel, in the same way that we treat the woman is the same way that we treat the earth. So just want to sing this woman honoring song to start us out. Hey, 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 yahi oh, yahi oh, hey, hey, yahi oh, yahi oh, hey, hey, yahi oh, hey.
All right, good job, Desi. Thank you so much. So yeah, young scholars, I really just wanted to show you that. I wanted to show you Desi singing because again, like I was just mentioning, firstly, I wanted to show the importance of relationships, right? This song was revived. It was revived by our sisters, our protectors, standing at Standing Rock, protecting the sacred at Standing Rock. The song was then given as a gift to our sisters standing to protect the sacred Mauna Kea, the place of creation, the first place of creation in Hawaii, a place of great importance to Kanaka Maoli, Native Hawaiians, and to all of us from the Pacific, from Moana Nui. A place that has revived this movement of Mauna Kea, has revived so many of us, again, has brought us together. All the differences that have been that has separated us, especially through our different and various forms of colonialisms. Movements like Mauna Kea has revived our spirits, has revived our belief in the sacred, and also has brought us together again. And this song again, as I mentioned to young scholars and young warriors, the song too was revived as you hear from Desi, right? And what I want to bring up as well is that Desi, like many of us, our songs, our traditional songs, are sacred, was also criminalized. Like Desi, because I know her, she's my niece, right? We work with her really, really closely as well. That it's a process, it's a long process. It's a process that might not look perfect within the West. But young scholars, it is a process that works. And so perhaps what I could just do is the next part, I just wanted to show a couple of photographs. I just wanted to talk about revivance, right? Revivance, survivance, revivance. Okay, similar Fui, but totally different words. So just a bit of photographs. Let's start with this one. So young scholars, this is a photograph for me. It's really dear to my heart. This photograph was actually taken by a really well-respected photographer here in the Bay Area. His name is Dan Batcher. Dan Batcher actually is a white man. He lives in Sacramento. Dan Batcher's work is he was part of a union, right? I just want to talk about, again, the role of relationships. For Dan Batcher's work is always in solidarity with Indigenous people. What he's talked about is he's taken his different knowledges, his privileges, and he's worked always in solidarity. By what he does is media. Like this is one of the photographs that he took. This was taken in 2015, a climate justice march that I really have to say how humbled I was to be part of organizing this. I actually worked with two amazing, really amazing Marshallese sisters, Rena Burchin and Joaquin, who's just, you see her in the photograph just right there, right? I think for me, when we talk about survivance, and I'll talk a little bit about the meaning of it, but I hope too are some of the key themes that I want to talk about today, is that you see, first and foremost, young people. For those of you who might not know, the Marshallese community are one of the communities who really are at the forefront of climate change. And this comes from their long history too of US imperialism. I'm just thinking about an article that I teach in my class that was written by our late ancestor, Teresia Tewa, right, who passed away a few years ago. Her important essays, Bikinis and Other Spaces, where she talks about how in 1946 to 1958, the Bikini Atolls, or that is part of the Marshall Islands, that the US, in 1980s, the United States reported that more than 200 nuclear bombs and devices had been detonated in the Pacific region of the world in Micronesia, right? And I also just wanted to talk about the continuing legacies, of course, of colonialism's happens. I mean, and I really want to humbly talk about our Pacific Islander brothers and sisters, the Marshallese, is because then they became refugees from their own homeland. Many of them had to migrate forcibly, right? Forcibly to other Pacific lands, like for example, in Hawaii. And what's happened in Hawaii, of course, is their marginalization, is their racialization. They have become the Marshallese community have become a really marginalized community in Hawaii, and a lot of different fractions between Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islander, other Pacific Islanders, and Marshallese communities, right? And so I also just want to talk about how colonialisms continue. Not only is it in the past, but for those of us from Wananui, unfortunately, many of us also have internalized that and have unfortunately deployed this violence on each other, right? In Hawaii too, for many Pacific Islanders, is the hate language against the Marshallese, told to go back home where you come from. You're here to extract our economic goods, go back where you come from, right? And so these kinds of divisions, I also just want to talk about, young scholars, how important it is to recognize. When we organized this march, and this was a march this was perhaps one of the large, big events that I helped to organize before I went into, kind of a hiding or hiatus before to finish writing my dissertation. But it was really important for us to put the Marshallese community right up front. And we had members of our own Polynesian community, beloved Tongans and Samoans, who said, why aren't our people up front? Why aren't our people holding the banners up front? And young scholars, that's exactly the reason why. We did that because we wanted to show, if we're really talking about Pacific Islander self-determination, that we ourselves had to talk about our own racialization within our own communities. And this was the reason why we put the young people, the young Marshallese people, right up front. As you can see also, what was the coalition building for this particular march, also everybody was really, I was so touched by it, because right behind the Marshallese community, you also see a Tongan, the Tongan stake, one of the Tongan stakes, meaning Tongan Mormons, right? They brought several, it was almost about 60 to 70 young people, right? Also you see Samoans, you also see Belau, right? It was really, really beautiful. That included Fijians as well. And the elders actually are walking in the back. I remember talking with one of the Fijian elders who came with a Fijian pastor actually from Hayward. And I remember I said, hey, uncle and auntie, you guys should come to the front. And they said, no. I remember all of us, it was just, we were all in tears, everyone. We had never seen this about ourselves, right? Holding these big, beautiful banners. I wanna say how those banners came to be was really the young people throughout the weeks. Before the march, we had art days, art making days, right? Where we would eat food, talk story, and paint these big, beautiful artwork. And really big shout out again to one of our white allies and a really well-respected artist here in the Bay Area. His name is David Solonitz. Right, all of this stuff he donated. He also donated his time to help the young people paint, all of this stuff. As you can see, this particular beautiful banner says, we are not drowning, we are fighting for our mokopuna. Okay, and that's the organization that we were part of, Oceania Coalition of Northern California. But I just really want to take it back to we're not drowning, we are fighting for our mokopuna. This was a banner that we, after perhaps several nights of deliberation, came up to, that this would be the banner that we would have up in the front, right? There were about 200 of us marching, and we were marching, really everybody, we were marching from an invitation from our Native American sisters in Idle No More, San Francisco. And I also have to be really honest, one of the reasons why our organization came together is because we didn't see ourselves being represented within the API rubric. And also because we didn't see ourselves being represented within the mainstream environmental movements. So what we did is we created our own organization, and we put our own people and our own belief systems and our own cosmologies up forefront. So we came up with We're Not Drowning, We're Not Fighting from our brothers and sisters who are part of the Pacific Island Climate Justice Warriors in Fiji. And we took for our Mokopuna, actually from our Maori brothers and sisters who were doing the no GMO marches that were happening in downtown Auckland, Aotearoa, New Zealand. Right, so again, I just want to talk about the genealogies of how everything works. You guys, what is not seen in this picture also are the Two-Spirit, the LGBT communities, also Utopia San Francisco. And so many of us, right, that are also not seen here, that are queer, that are trans and Two-Spirit. Those brothers and sisters really held it down. They were so important for us. And again, as I mentioned, it was really the work of women. So I really want to say in our communities too, is really who holds our communities together is the work of women, is the dreams of women. And this is one of the, this is definitely one of the narratives of survivance that I wanted to share. You know, brothers and sisters and young warriors too, what I want to also draw on is the importance of relationships. You know, to get 200 Pacific Islanders to come together from all our different Pacific nations was not an easy task. And I say that too with just great humility. What it meant is that we had to go, Joaquin and I actually, Joaquin who lives here in Oakland as well, we drove down to Sacramento a couple nights for a couple months. We would always take food. We would go and sit and Talanoa with the elders in order to reach these young people. We also had to promise them that after this march, we're gonna be back, that we wanted to build relationships with them with their children, and we cared what their grandkids, we cared about them, that this was not a one-time stunt, right? With the Tongan community and the churches, we had to go to the Mormon churches, even if we disagreed. And I really wanna bring this point up about creating coalitions and resilience, is even if you disagreed, we showed up. We showed up at the Mormon church. I want to give a big shout out also to my sister Loa. She was a big part of this organizing. That meant going to the Mormon church, that meant going to Mormon church, everybody. That meant showing up with the Methodist, the Samoan congregational churches. That meant showing up. Like Linda Tuhiwai Smith says, one of the most important Indigenous methodologies is showing face. And we had to do that. We had to do that across our differences. Also, of course, you know, that also meant showing up for the pride parades to support our brothers and sisters in Utopia. That meant that we had to show face. We had to show face for everybody. Also, when people had their different funerals, that meant we had to show up. We had to go and show our grief that we stood together with them. So in order to create this one moment, it was several moments is what I want to say, right? It's several moments. And this one moment has continued to sustain us. Why? Because it creates this dream. What it does is it shows us that we are beyond what settler colonialism tells us. It always shows us only as athletes. And we love our brothers and sisters who are athletes. This is not to disrespect them in any way. But we're saying also that we're also much more than that. This is to show also that we can also be the arbiters, right? We can decide our own self-determination. And again, for us, the importance of creating coalitions, the importance of creating relationships. This one, we're marching with our Indigenous brothers and sisters. What you don't see in this photograph, California Indians. We came, who brought us into this circle was our California Indian relatives. And at every moment they said, we know what invisibility looks like. Because here in our own land, we're not even recognized. We're unrecognized in our own land. So this is California Indian relatives are the one who invited us. It was also with them that said, come and stand in the front with us. Bring your people, bring your young people, and bring your elders. So everybody, we had to do it in a Pacific way. You know, after this, we got all our money together and we took our California Indian relatives out to eat at a buffet. And we probably stayed at the buffet and shut it down for 3 hours. Okay, so that's how we did this in a really Indigenous way. So I just want to go to the next one. Actually, I think I'm just looking at my time. We're okay with time? You know, guys, I'm going to stop for a little minute and just check in with folks. How are people looking? Professor Najita, you're still awake. Wow, I love it. You know, you guys, I really forgot to say this, and please forgive me. I really want to say how much ofatu and just so much respect to my mother, Litia Niumei, and also my sister, Vaimona. And thank you so much. You know, when we talk about relationships, of course I have to talk about my mom, right? And I'm thinking, you know, I'm making a little change in the talk because I also just want to show our young scholars that this is also part of an Indigenous methodology, right? That, you know, you guys, I came with a whole talk, right? All mapped out. But I was thinking while I was talking, I said, wow, Fui, you know, you have your mother there. And because your mother is there, that means the ways that you had your talk has to change. You know, this is, you know, this happened in, you know, Samara, if you remember that talk that you came in, that I facilitated a talk with Kumu Pua Case, right? And I remember our young people in that particular talk had their whole agenda all set up. And then Kumu Pua Case, everybody, in the beginning of the talk said, actually, I feel that we should do A, B, and C. And you know, all of us, we've been brought up too in Western academia. And Western academia says, but the syllabus says this. And I said, you guys, what a great opportunity to learn, right? When Kumu Pua Case comes, Kumu Pua Case, who's the protector and the steward of Mauna Kea, when she comes and she says, I think and I believe that we should do the meeting in this way, then what we have to do is we have to do it. And that means that we shift the ways that we want, that we had imagined ourselves and the meeting, because our elder here is because of our great respect for her and our great respect for our Mauna Kea. So that's why we changed the meeting. And you guys, it was a lot of fun. We had a great time. And Samara, we were able to meet you for that meeting, right? So that's the same thing I also think about my mom. You know, everybody, I think about her, and you know, we're talking about stories of survivance. Maybe let me just tell you a definition of survivance, right? And maybe we'll just take a deep breath. Okay, just deep breath. Thank you so much for being here. So survivance, according to the native scholar Gerald Visner, right? He says, survivance is an active sense of presence over absence. And survivance is the continuance of stories, not a mere reaction. Survivance stories are a renunciation of dominance, detraction, the unbearable sentiments of tragedy, and the legacy of victimry. You know, I think about you, my mom, Litia, and I think about our stories of survivance. And if I may, I would just like to tell just a narrative, right? A narrative for me. You know, I remember when I was at Tippview High School in Utah. This is when my parents were going to Brigham Young University when we had moved to Provo, Utah. I remember being one of very few students of color in the place and just feeling so uncomfortable in my body, being a big Tongan girl at that time, big hair, a big voice, a big personality. When the gender roles for that place of Utah was to be small, right? For girls, your role was to be small. And as a Tongan young woman, I was nothing small. And I remember my math class. Math was something I really want to say for math. It was something that I didn't do well at all. It was something I was so scared of. But my mother, this was her area of expertise. In fact, my mother received a PhD from Brigham Young University in statistical science. So with my mother knew she would try to teach me so many times, huh, Mom? She would try to teach me my math so many times at home. And in my mind, I had resorted that math was something that I believed, perhaps I should say, I believed the myths without even looking at my mom as one of my heroes that could help me demystify that. But I really believed the myths that I learned in academia, that as a Tongan, I wasn't good at math, that I would never be good at math. I remember one day when I came to go to one of my classes, huh, Mom? You had talked with one of my teachers, and I saw my mother in my all-white school standing there. I remember your clothes, Mom, because Law and I, we were bused to Tippview High School. At this time in our lives, when we were new immigrants to Utah, my family, we lived in a trailer court, a 3-bedroom trailer court. And as a teenager, clothes was everything to me because I tried my best to mask the fact that we were poor. And I remember you, Mom, from afar. I remember you standing there. You came because you loved me. You came because you loved me. You came because you wanted to talk to my teacher, and you said when you saw me, because when everybody left, I came up to my mom and I said, the first thing I said, Mom, why are you here? Don't you know you bring me so much shame? I just wanted to say, Mom, Litia, you're the greatest joy in my life. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for checking up on me in that all-white high school. Thank you so much for caring about my education. Thank you so much I know that you had to fight white supremacy and heteropatriarchy in all your experiences here in the United States, in all of them. And you showed up. And I remember just looking at you, it reminded me of how different I was. And when I saw you, it reminded me of that I could never, just reminded me of my otherness, of never belonging. So, Mom, I think about you being here in this Delano circle with us. I just want to say thank you so much. Malo, malo e fungawe lahi. Mom, going into the white institutions, especially a place like Brigham Young University, showing us through your hard work and integrity that you could, that you could accomplish this dream that you had, which was to get your doctorates in math. And you did it always, as you always said, it was always for us. So I talk about that shame, young scholars. I talk about that shame that we carry in our families and with ourselves, because I know it's a shame that we all carry. I have really so blessed to mentor so many young Indigenous and Pacific Island youths here at University of California, Berkeley, and also really around the US. And this is a work to me that is so important. And in all the stories that we talk about is the great shame, right? The great shame. Our big bodies that don't comply. Our big hair that doesn't comply. Our big personalities that can't comply. And so I really want to say to our elders, like you, Litia, thank you so much. No, it doesn't matter so much anymore. Young scholars, And I just want to tell the story too as a story of survivance. To continue, please, please know that you're so loved as well. Please know that your big hair, Ni Samara, your big hair, how beautiful that is. Your non-complying hair, that big body. You're pretty skinny though, Samara. I was saying that. You need to eat up. Young scholars, I'm talking about myself, right? I'm just talking about myself and my own tongue and body. But whatever body that you have, whether it's big or small, whether it's a queer body, what body you have, whether it's a body that's aging, right? That it's a good body. And I want to say thank you so much, Mom. Thank you for helping me to get to that place today. That I can really look at all of those parts of me, and also to say, really, I don't know everybody if I can really say that I'm so proud of it, but I can say though that I'm grateful that I'm in a place that I'm just trying, and each day trying my best to show up and to be grateful. So thank you so much, Mom. And also thank you so much to my little sister, Vaimana, as well. Vaimana, if I could just tell a story about survivance about you, right? When Vaimana first started her undergraduate, she first started her undergraduate when you got accepted to the art program at NYU, how much that meant to us. And I mean it in this way. Because, at this time in our lives, it was always so important when we saw in our Pacific communities, and in so many of us were immigrants, everybody, right? We're immigrants. So when we immigrated to this country, we gave up so much of our own homeland to come here. So part of that was that we believed in this particular American dream. This American dream, Mona, I think when we talk about it, was that we had to major in the sciences. Right? I also tell the story because I know that many of you young scholars are not majoring in the sciences, or some of you might, right? But then when we grew up, our love for the arts was seen as, was really always seen as inconsequential. Mona, was seen as an access. We were always, how we were told by the world was that, wow, you're really gonna waste your American migration with majoring in the arts? How ridiculous is that? But Mona, I wanted to say, when you went into the arts, how important that was. How important that was for us as Tongans. How important that was for me as your biggest sister to see. How you really centered that. And I remember that first art piece, Mona, that you did, the 3 Monas. It was a really big, it was 6 feet, huh, Mona? A 6 feet triptych, and there was a self-portrait. And I remember I remember just looking at that and weeping. And Mona, I remember looking at that gallery, because Mona's piece was in a gallery in Utah. I remember standing with other Tongans and Samoans and Pacific Islanders. We were all at the University of Utah, and every single one of us wept. Why? Because it was the first time that we saw ourselves. We saw ourselves, it was a big body of a big Tongan girl, reflected back to us. It was a girl with big hair. It was a girl with a big personality. And it was reflected back to us. And that's what you did. So I really want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for those stories of survivance. Thank you so much for reminding us how beautiful and how empowering it is to be Tongan and to be a daughter of Mauna Nui. And so really with so much love and respect to you, Litia, my mother, my beloved mother, and also to you, Moana, my beloved little sister. So everybody, I just totally deviated from my talk there. Perhaps, I know, and I can see the time. Perhaps what I will do is just, I'll just talk a little bit about, the histories. I'll talk a little bit about the work that we also do with Pacific Islander communities and California Indians. Also, I really want to say too, this work is so important. We work with, it's really a work across the board, right? With queer brothers and sisters, many white allies, also our Palestinian brothers and sisters, our brothers and sisters from the Middle East, our Asian brothers and sisters. Really, this work, I really want to honor again, and I want to talk about a prodigal that from the part of California that I'm from, which is Huichin, the original name for this place that's now known as Oakland, California. One of the leaders of this place, Karina Gold, always talks about, she says that here in Huichin, what her ancestors did is they sowed seeds of what we now know as magic. And those are the seeds that feeds us. She says, here on this territory, she says, I want you to all be good guests. She's not just talking about us as Pacific people. She's talking about all of us that have now called the Bay Area our home. She says, you have to be good guests so that we can be good hosts. She says, when you come here to the Bay Area, she always talks about this. She says, she talks to fourth graders and they always understand. She says, fourth graders understand that when you go to a home that's not yours or someplace, you don't go and you like the place, or tongue and word, create destruction on that place. When you're a guest, like kids know so well, you ask for permission. You ask for permission from the people whose land that you're on. You recognize that the land is sacred and you honor the stewards of that land, because the joy and the magic that we here in the Bay Area know today that has created the histories of social justice here in the Bay Area. It is a land that is alive. It is a land whose seeds were sowed by the original stewards of that land. And so that's what Karina Gold says. Remember what fourth graders know. When you go to someone's land, you ask for permission. You don't break things. You walk tenderly, carefully on land. You know that it's alive. You know that it's part of somebody else. You know that you share it. So it's part of what I wanted to talk about in this presentation, young scholars, is I wanted to talk about how, for me as a Tongan woman, the work to protect the sacred, the work to stand in solidarity with other Indigenous people to protect the sacred is really a work that has saved my own life. Of course, everybody, when I saw that my mom was here, of course, I'm like all of us, right? I'm like, uh-oh, my mom's gonna criticize me, I better not talk about A, B, and C, And it's just really with all due respect, Mom. So, young scholars, my work is on violence against women. It's a work that took a while. It took a long time to finish. One of the things so sorry. Excuse me. One of the things that the work required, and actually it was through doing the research, everybody, that I recognized that actually the relationship that I was in, the primary relationship that I was in, or the marriage that I was in at that time was one of violence, right? And when I had grown up, again, with all due respect, violence was so normalized that I didn't know how to define it. Yet I knew that it didn't feel right. And so it's really through the work, really, like I talked about how I came first to the University of California, Berkeley, to a lonely land, almost very close to 30 years ago when I was in my 20s. It was the work against violence against women as an undergraduate. I was in it was an activist organization. I didn't think much of it, everybody. Right? I didn't think much of it. I just thought, wow, I'm going to go on this trip to the University of California, Berkeley through the scholarship that I got. And actually, it was coming, it was at that moment too, many, many years ago, like I said, almost several decades ago, that I knew that I would be returning back to do the work. And like I said, the 13 years includes having to leave. I had to make some really difficult choices in my life, including, you guys, unfortunately, there were people also that I loved so much that also are no longer part of my life in order to do the work that I did, right? That includes the activism, and that also includes the research in the university. And of course that breaks our hearts. It breaks our hearts every moment, and it still does. What does give me hope, everybody, is that I know, though, and it's the hope and it's the faith that the work can help other young brothers and sisters and non-gender binary young people to perhaps live a different life, right? I thought to myself, if I can define what violence is, because we don't have a definition, because it's so normalized within our Tongan communities and in our families, then perhaps if I can put a language to define it, then that can help young sisters and brothers in the future so that they don't have to go through what I went through. And also, if we can give a language to violence, then what we can also do, our young brothers and sisters can also work towards ending and eradicating violence against women. So I'll just show some of the last photographs. That's okay.
Dr. Fui,
Yes.
I also want to say thank you, Malo Pito, because you shared with us your heart. And I think that we should all know that it's an honor to be able to sit and listen to you and feel with you what you had to endure to be the great educator that you are. And I think I can speak for everyone when I say that we're extremely humbled by your wisdom and by your loving spirit that's radicalizing education. You bring so much, you brought so much to us today in this talk. You've allowed us to see Moana Nui from so many different angles. And I really want to ensure that everyone has a time to ask you questions.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, sometimes I think you forget that you're great. You're absolutely amazing. And people need to ask away. So please put your questions in the chat.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you so much. Well, you know, we can see people's faces too. I mean, can we do that? Can folks ask their question like that?
Yes, I'm gonna read.
Either way.
Perfect. Krishna Han also has a comment. He says, "Thank you for sharing your stories, your inspired optimism, and your organizing work for collective resistance against the colonialism and other types of isms that oppress not only marginalized groups, but also our Mother Earth."
Krishna, thank you so much. Wow. Krishna, where are you zooming from?
I'm zooming from Toledo, Ohio.
My goodness. Wow. Toledo, Ohio. Wow, I've been to Ohio when I was at Purdue in Indiana, and I went to Ohio. I'm going to tell you, you guys had some of the best. You know, it's very different from California. This is why I loved it. Like, everybody there really is into meat and potatoes. I absolutely had one of the best meals there. Wow, Krishna. And what a beautiful name too.
Thank you.
Wow. And Krishna, where are your ancestors from?
From Cambodia.
My goodness. Wow. What beautiful people. So much love. People have so much resilience. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Krishna, I really mean it when I said that earlier. You know, really want to honor your ancestors. You know, with all our brothers and sisters who I've met from Cambodia, I have so much respect. Your stories of resilience and survivance. So I really want to honor that right now. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Krishna.
Martha would like to say thank you for sharing authentically, even with folks you have not met before. Thank you for trusting us with your story and gifts.
Thank you so much, Martha.
I did want to ask a question, Dr. Fuifuilupe, because another one of our aunties, Dr. Najida, is one of the few professors kako'o, or supporting Pacifica knowledge and decolonizing knowledge at the university. And I think it could be beneficial for everyone to know how institutions or educational institutions can better support Pacifica or Pacifica ally professors and the work that you're doing, because it's really hard work, right? Like all the papers you publish, all the classes you host, some of it is, for your job title, but most of it is because you have a huge heart for Moana Nui, and you have a huge heart for your family, and a huge heart for all your relations and your ancestors. And I would love to know if there's things that you think institution could benefit from supporting, or you could benefit if an institution supported you in certain areas.
That's a really great question. Thank you so much, Samara. If I could just take it back just to Martha and what Martha was talking about. Martha, thank you so much for just the support. Martha, and sharing with people that, and I know that comes from such a great place, and that it comes from your heart, of people that I don't know. Young scholars, I really want to tell you this. My whole life I've lived with shame. My whole life. And I think, and I just say this because you guys are young scholars, and I see that, and because our world needs you, right? When we look at what's happening in the world right now, I want to say that when you grow up with so much loss, and with so much, for me, the shame that I grew up in, I feel that how I'm able to speak, I feel today, how I'm able to speak like I do today, openly, perhaps, and perhaps what we might say is authenticity, right, from my own self, perhaps. I just want to say, Martha, I want to really encourage all of you to really do that difficult work. Please, young scholars. In academia, I know it doesn't value you doing the important work of truly, truly loving yourself. I guess that's what I want to say. With the young scholars who wanted to take their lives, 4 of them, they felt that their lives weren't important. And young scholars, I'm saying this because academia really also it's going to take so much from you, and you're going to want to take your lives, many of you, and many times, with all due respect. And I'm saying this, the importance of doing self-care. Self-care is the work, to finish the dissertation that I did. As I mentioned, that was the last big action that I worked on before doing the Mauna Kea and ceremony at West Berkeley Shellmount, right? So I graduated in 2019. When I finished with that, we did a ceremony with the Mauna Kea, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander, and really Bay Area, white allies as well, LGBT communities, a big ceremony, about 300 people. Our Kashmiri brothers and sisters were there as well. Tibetan brothers and sisters were there as well, to honor Mauna Kea, and also to help protect the West Berkeley Shellmount, which is the oldest sacred site here in the Bay Area. What I'm saying is, for me to finish the dissertation, and everybody also, to help end the addictions that I was going through at the time, it really was the work to protect the sacred. That was the work for me. That was the work of loving myself. I hope young scholars, don't let this world break you, right? And don't let this world also, I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know. Okay, I don't know. I don't know all the difficulties that you are encountering, that you're holding in your life right now. But if I can give any little bit of encouragement, I want to say, take that work of honoring the sacred that is you. The sacred that is you. Take that work really seriously. Please, because we need you. So Samara, your question is a good one. Young brothers and sisters, if you have the time, this upcoming Thursday, I'm going to be hosting a Talanoa with some Tongan sisters, actually Tongan scholars here at Cal, at UC Berkeley, and it's going to be through Zoom, right? This is all part of a Pacific Islander Initiative project that we are petitioning the state of California to include Pacific Island Studies in the ethnic studies curriculum, right? Not just Pacific Island Studies, but we stand hand in hand with our Arab brothers and sisters to also include Palestine in the ethnic studies curriculum. So this is part of that project. How can people, I mean, that's a big question, Samara. You know, perhaps I'll go back to one of the big things I hope, Professor, is building relationships, right? Building relationships. Here at UC Berkeley, what we're seeing with many of our Pacific Island students is that it's again the depression, right? Depression. So in order to talk to a student about their depression, in order to understand them and to work with them, how we do it is you have to work with the whole family, right? So let's say a student named Jenny is depressed, right? She's a Pacific Islander student. So as an auntie, as a Tongan myself, what I know is that I'm going to talk to Jenny, right? This is a personal meeting, but I also recognize that in order for Jenny to get the real help that she needs, what I have to do is I have to work with her family. Many times, as when we talk about families, everybody, we're not just talking about Jenny's parents, right? We're talking about aunties and uncles. We're talking perhaps about the Methodist church that she's part of, perhaps the Mormon state that she's part of. We're talking about her cousins. We're talking about perhaps the boyfriend that she doesn't tell anybody about, right? And then his family as well, right? So we're talking about communities. And these are the relationships that we build if you want to reach one Pacific Islander student. Samara, your question is such a big one. Yeah, I think also, I think conversations, right guys? Conversations. It was like that 2015 March. We had conversations, you know, both parties. You guys, there are many times we show up, you know, to different communities. They're like, oh no, it's them again. They want us to go do something. Oh no. But you know what? We brought food. You know, food is all the magical thing. You know, another thing we did, we took care of the kids. You know, guys, we took care of kids. It was the best. You know, I'm the worst with 3-year-olds, but I certainly learned a lot of stuff that I could, books and stuff that I could do with 3 and 6-year-olds, right? Another thing, take care of the elders, right? Take care of the elders, bring them their favorite foods. Sit there with them while they talk stories. So it's a big part. Creating relationships is how you work with any community.
There's a really important question. Alofa Atumer, we have a Samoan scholar. She said, first of all, thank you for this discussion. I've never met and heard from a Pacifica scholar. How do you bring mana into spaces and keep it there even after you leave? On my campus, I am one of 3 Pacific Island students in the middle of the Midwest. I've always found it so difficult to even find Pacific Island scholars like yourself in our library. It seems like the conversation surrounding Indigenous people and Pacific Islanders starts and ends with me, as in herself. That's really tough. So it's Olofanga, sending you a lot of love.
Wow. Well, Niece Mern, Fafitai Lava, Fafitai Telilava. You know, thank you for the great work. You know, how to answer a question like that, of course, you know, I just really want to, first and foremost, Mern, recognize the great responsibility, right? Also the great grief that is in the invisibilization. You know, we worked with the young people for that march, you guys. You don't know how many nights we sat with the kids crying, where they said nobody knows who Marshallese people are. And it was always like nobody knows and that nobody cared. The great, you know, the marginalization, the invisibility, Merm. I just want to say thank you so much for the great work that you're showing up. Showing up is so difficult. I also know that for us as Pacific scholars, one of the things that we're going to be talking about on Thursday night, Merm, is also how do we do academia in a different way? You know, how do we do academia in a way too that, of course, you know, we have all of it, but we have to, comply to many of the Western laws for completing a PhD, and trying to get tenure, and trying to get hired and trying to get tenured and all of that. But we're also, it's a big part of the conversation in the Decolonial that we want to do on Thursday is our communities are hurting. For Pacific Islander communities, we are actually in the states that we're in, including California, we actually have the highest infection rates and the highest deaths. And when we talk about invisibility, young scholars, this is no joke. This is also a number that doesn't mean anything. Like Pacific Islanders, too, the families that we talk to, they say, what does it matter? What does it matter that we're dying? With the young people that we talk to, they always say, why does it matter? Why does my life matter? Myrna, I want to say, when I say thank you so much, I'm recognizing all of that. I'm recognizing the great difficulty. I'm recognizing the daily work, the labor, the emotional labor that goes into showing up each day, and knowing that once you walk out of that room, there's going to be all, like the California Indians say, there is going to be no sign that you ever were there. In fact, that they're going to work so hard to destroy any evidence that you were there. So Myrn, what a great blessing it is. I feel that our ancestors connected us, with talking all of that. You know, young scholars, I want to always say how much hope there is, how much resilience our ancestors is. Myrn, I mean it when I say this is not any coincidence that you're here in our Decolonial with us. And I really look forward, even with you, Krishna, I really look forward to working together. Now, I'm probably going to call you guys sometimes later on in the future and say, oh my gosh, I'm so depressed. Take me to a buffet. And I expect you guys to take me to a buffet. But yeah, Amern, it's a difficult work. It's a difficult work. And I hope that, like what I said before, take that work of self-care. Don't look at that as anything frivolous, anything frivolous whatsoever. Because Mern, what you are taking care of is a heart and a spirit that is told in this country is nothing. So to love that, what you have been told time and time again, systemically is nothing, is the greatest work. Take that work seriously, young brothers and sisters. Take that work seriously. And I hope, we have so many of our ancestors, who really also created work. Like I think about this work too, Mern, I hope you can be part of this other project that Samara and I are also part of. In December 17th, we're doing a Pacific Island Studies Moana Nui poetry event to honor the life of Albert Wend, the renowned Samoan poet. This is a project that we're doing with Pacific Islander poets from all over the world. I would love it. Why don't you come on and help introduce some of the speakers with Samara? Okay, yeah, come on over and meet people. Come meet people. Come also meet people, Mern, that love you, and who want to be part of the journey of helping to support you. And at the same time, I say, hey, Mern, we need you. We need you to really to continue this great work on behalf of all of us. Young scholars, just like I see right in front of me, Nadia, Krishna, the work that you do now is as much as you had these ancestors who loved you so much, whose work and whose dreams brought you here today, meaning into your education, who gave you life, who gave you the beautiful personality and the dreams that you all have. This is also part of the circle that you keep that resilience, you keep that hope, you keep that faith, because you are also the ancestors of the future. And wow, look how beautiful is that? This work that you're doing is so important. Please never forget that.
Malo Alpito. if you have anything, any closing remarks you want to say before we have Cousin Solomon and Cousin Zoe close us out, um, feel free to go ahead. Any last questions, put it in the chat.
Mara, can I say something?
Yes, comment in the chat. I'll read for you.
Fui, thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself with us, and also for the presence of your mother and your sister. What a wonderful thing to allow us to hear your story, that you we were listening in on the story that you gave to your sister and your mother. Okay. It's a very rare thing to witness that. And the other thing I want to say is I'm dying to read your dissertation and to learn about how you are theorizing the notion of Va, or the space between people, which I think in American society there is very little understanding of that notion of Va. And I think we have a lot to learn from it. And so I'm looking forward to reading your work. And I know it comes from a very deep place for you. And the last thing I want to say is, when you say that Mauna Kea and the understanding the sacred actually brought you closer to loving yourself, I want to challenge us all to, all right, to find ways to expand the sacred in the work that we do in academia and in the world, and to transform our fields of knowledge to place the sacred at the center. So I thank you for your words and your thoughts today, Hui. Thank you.
Hey, mahalo. Malo, Professor Najita. Malo ngawe lahi, malo ngawe tauhi tauwa mo tupu. Malo tauhi tauwa. Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you for sharing your heart with us as well. And also thank you so much for taking care of our youth, our young warriors. What a great work. What a great work it is. You know, what a great work it is. You know, young scholars, I just end with a little quote from, you know, one of our beloved father, one of our beloved ancestors of Pacific Island Studies, Epeli Hauofa. You know, Mern, and I say this to you, young scholar, young warrior. You know, I think about Samoan god of war, who was a woman, Nafanua. Evoke her name. What a great ancestor that takes care of you and who loves you so much, and who was a warrior. Very different from the Western sense of what a warrior god would be of war. Usually here in the West, it's always a man. In our Pacific, in our Moana Nui, it's women. For us as Tongans, one of the stories that I tell that is so important, one of our greatest gods, whose name was desecrated, was criminalized, that we don't hear so much about, is actually our mother, Hine Nui Te Po. So we say her name as well. And young scholars, I want you to know how much you are loved. That you are like our ancestors, our deities who have never died. Our work is to bring back that sacred, is to remember those names again. Like for the work our Native Hawaiian brothers and sisters are doing at Mauna Kea, to remember the names again. Poliahu, one of the gods of that mountain. Great woman, a woman god, a warrior. Pele. These names, I hope, young scholars, as we continue to grow together, these names of our deities, of our ancestors, we know them. We know them just like any other deities that we have been taught throughout our lives. This is also the names. When we know these names, we also remember our place, that no matter how things are so difficult, Mern, how invisible you might be, you know, you see the bigger picture. You see the bigger picture, that it's only for a moment. That the bigger picture, Mern, is a picture that's already also been defined for you. Because when you walk with your ancestors, Mern, you know you're not lost. You know you're not small. You know that your big body is exactly what it's supposed to be. And you know that you're enough. So in the words of one of our ancestors, Epeli Haofa, this is what he says, you know, young scholars, we should not be defined by the smallness of our islands, like we talked about earlier, but in the greatness of our oceans. We are the sea, we are the ocean. Oceania is us. And in closing, he says, Oceania is vast, Oceania is expanding, Oceania is hospitable and generous. Oceania is humanity rising from the depths of brine and regions of fire, deeper still. Oceania is us. We are the sea, we are the ocean. Tu Alfatu, young warriors. Love you guys so much.
Well, Chimagwech, on behalf of our sponsors and the University of Michigan, I'd like to say thank you, Chimagwech, to Dr. Fuifuilupe for sharing your words with us today. It is your strength, your creativity, and your determination that inspires us all. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today and allowing us to be vulnerable with each other through this We Can Heal Together. I would also like to say miigwech to Samara for hosting the conversation and being an amazing leader in our Indigenous community here at the University of Michigan.
We would also like to thank all of you for joining us and sharing so much with each other today. Chimigwech for sharing. There's a survey link being sent out in the chat box as well as via email. And please complete this so we can continue to show the university why events like this are so important. And we're nearing the end of Native American Heritage Month, but we still have a couple of great events we'd like you to check out on our website. This Friday, we are hosting a conversation on Afro-Indigeneity at 6 p.m. Eastern Time with Dr. Kyle T. Mace and Amber Starks, and we will examine what it means to be Black and Indigenous in the world today. With that, we hope you have the great rest of your week and happy Native American Heritage Month. Once again, Chimigwech, Dr. Hui.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. And young scholars, I just wanted to say, if you did want to contact me, I'm very happy to be in conversation, especially if you come to the Bay Area, come see us at the Segurite Land Trust. You could just reach me at Fuifuilupe, it's just my first name, at berkeley.edu. So yeah, I really look forward to it. And so much love, Afatu, so much love to all of you. If we were meeting together, we'd all go out to a buffet right now. Mern, I really look forward to it. Krishna, I look forward to conversations. Okay, join us on Thursday.
Yes, I just sent that to Samara as well. And I forgot to share with you, I don't know if Samara has already shared with you that MESA is doing benchmarking work on PIs to support in the Big Ten, and including University of Utah, by the way, and Berkeley, and also University of Washington. Yes, we're hoping to wrap up our benchmarking. The deadline is sometime in January, but we might be able to wrap up a little bit sooner. So I will be sending you an email for sure, especially when we have that some kind of key finding from that benchmarking, because we do have a few ideas, but we would like to be informed by this benchmarking work first, and then I will be starting to reach out.
Wow, Krishna, how exciting. Thank you so much.
Oh,
love it.
My pleasure. Samara and a few other students has been working together, and of course, Dr. Nachita and Dr. Stillman has been very supportive as well. So I'm excited, and I don't know if you know, we've been reading this book, Samara and I've been reading this book called The Ocean in the School. So I think we're gonna be having the author of this book coming next semesters for the APIA as well, I think.
Oh, that's so, who's the, look at me.
It's Dr. Rick Bonus from University of Washington.
Oh,
and
yes,
yes.
yep. Oh, wow. Whoa, what a small world. What a small world. So Rick got his book. When was that published?
It published in February this year.
Oh,
That's very recent.
gotcha.
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I feel a little better. I was like, oh, okay, that's another book that I should have read. But okay, Krishna, that makes me feel a little better that was published this year. So yeah,
So I will be writing to you for sure, especially maybe after the new year.
It sounds really great. Yeah, Krishna, if you can join us for our Thursday Talanoa here at UC Berkeley.
Yes, it's on my calendar.
Oh, you guys, it's gonna be so much fun. Yeah, Mern, we might call you up to come and do a song. Mern's like, uh-oh. Mern, what school are you in?
I'm at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm in the middle of cold, and I have but
Wow,
but I could do a poem instead, maybe there instead of a song. I did a poetry competition recently, and I was labeled one of the top poets in the nation for collegiate poets. So maybe do that instead of singing.
Well, I really mean it, Mern, because our poets that we have set up for December 17th includes the American Book Award winner Craig Santos Perez from Guam, Kathy Gentle, the Marshallese poet. I mean, we've got some really big folks from the Pacific. And I mean it, because why don't you come in and help us to introduce Professor Albert Wen? So that would be really cool. So definitely email me, and let's have you work with Samara and you guys, because I love it. I really want to see young poets, especially young people being part of this project, because most of us were all old, we're like, nah, not so fun, let's get young people. So if that's something you would like to do, Murren, please do come on board. That would be so much fun.
Of course, yeah, I'd love to. Any way to get away from a lot of my white peers around here and get some Pacific Islands around me. Any reason at all.
Yeah, the really great thing about it too is that it's poetry, it's arts. And one of our speakers too is Uncle Tingilau Ness, who is Niueian, and he's from Aotearoa, New Zealand. He's one of the original founders of the Polynesian Panthers. So yeah, he's one of, he's definitely one of our speakers. Let's see, who else do we have? Teresia Singatonu, Samoan poet from the Bay Area.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a whole bunch of folks, also the Mauna Kea of Bay Area, Mauna Kea folks are doing the closing chants. So yeah, guys, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's December, but yeah, we're looking forward to our program too this Thursday. But you guys also have a wonderful speaker coming up on Afro-Indigeneity. Yeah, you guys are like, okay, we need to go eat dinner. Okay, I get it. Face, I get. I got it, everybody. I totally get it. Hey, thank you so much. What a great honor it was to talk to and be in community with every single one of you tonight.
Can I just say thank you to Zoe and Solomon too for their coordination, and Krishna for helping us to get this to happen.
And Andrea.
Thank you.
Krishna, thank you for
and
your
Samara.
Samara too. Yes.
Thanks, Zoe. Thank you so much, niece Andrea. Thank you so much,
Andrea.
Dr. Lithia Niumei Tolu, she also says Ofalahia too, just in case.
Okay, wow. Yeah, she'll say it now, huh, Mom? But just like, whoa, that story though.
No. She means it, Auntie.
Okay. I know, it's true. Okay, Mom, I'll give you guys a call. All right, everybody. I love you guys. I wish that you guys could all come by and I would make you guys food tonight.
sometime soon, maybe.
Yeah,
We'll do that.
sometime
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a good night,
Bye, you
everyone.
guys.
Bye, my
Take
people.
care and stay safe.
All right. Thanks so much.